Billiken fans, welcome back. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. It's the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Make sure you're commenting. We got a few comments on the last episode, I think, or it was the episode before. Either way, it's awesome. I love it. We've got Matthew Rocchio coming on the show. So comment on anything we had to say, anything he had to say. It's just a really great men's basketball conversation, and definitely chime in because if you have questions, we'll answer them as well. We'd love to answer questions. It's season 5. Once again, the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men in a Garden Salsa. Looking for the best local salsa here in St. Louis on the shelf? Look no further than Two Men and a Garden Salsa. It's made fresh with simple ingredients, an absolute ton of flavor, dipping, topping, mixing. It's going to elevate your mid-game snacking. Two Men in a Garden. It's going to make the losses a little bit easier to swallow and make the wins that much sweeter. Visit them online at twomeninagarden.com to shop your favorite flavors and learn more about things like their kitchen hub. Don't forget to follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, we got Matt Rocchio back on the show, and I'm excited for Billiken fans to hear it.
Yeah, me too, Zach. Love having Rock on the show. He will forget more about basketball than I will ever know.
We are ball unknowers. He is a ball knower.
Unknowers like us. Yeah, he's just a really sharp basketball mind. Love talking the game with him. And he's a SLU fan too. So yeah, just really appreciate his perspective. I think he brings a little bit different set of eyes on the game than either you or I do. So he's great to have on.
We are going to do something a little bit different with Rock. We started out with the second game of the week because of how insane that ending was. Here is our segment with Matt Rocchio. Billiken fans, we welcome on now Matt Rocchio to talk ambush soccer. We are going to talk Billiken basketball, and I mean we talked about this before we started recording. I was saying, let's talk I forget the
Wofford.
team. Yeah, Wofford first. And Rock, you were like, no, we got it. We got to hit the fresh topic, and we got to talk about Grand Canyon. It's
around the mind.
Yeah, it's a 72-73 win at Grand Canyon. The Billikens had 72, Grand Canyon had 73, but the Billikens win this game. Sunday the 22nd. Holy shit. What do we talk the officiating first, guys, or what do we do?
I mean, you kind of have to. I mean, Josh Schertz, obviously he played it diplomatically, so he's not losing any money or anything. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, when you have Josh Schertz pointing out that he put his salary down, that's pretty clearly their ball in the 3.8 second out of bounds, then I think that's a pretty adamant point. And I also think, just when we tie up a lot of things, I mean, I think the Kobe Johnson foul that sends him to the line is extremely ticky-tack questionable call where there's a lot of contact on both sides. And I think, I don't necessarily think that the previous out of bounds that also went Grand Canyon's way that was switched. I don't necessarily think that Kalu wasn't the last person to touch that. I'm not nearly as confident about that one as I am about Moore. So I'll acquiesce that might have been out on Kaluanya. My issue on that one is because the call was SLU ball. So is
Right.
the evidence in the replay good enough to change the call on the court? And so I think when you look at those three plays and then just some other just usual calls you have questions about, it's fair that you're focusing on something that we hate focusing on.
So you're talking about all three of those plays at the very end of the game.
Yep.
And we had already been saying well before that, Zach.
And I wasn't. I was hands off. I was like, you know what? The officiating's been sus, but it's like, oh, that's not a foul here. That's a missed, something there. Even that, the out of bounds, the one that you said you're not sure about, Kaluanya, what pissed me off about that was there was a call earlier in the game where the ball clearly went out off Grand Canyon. You can't review that. The ball goes to Grand Canyon. And then, of course, the time it happens to SLU again, that's one of those where it's like, oh, you fouled him, but we're gonna call it out on somebody because we don't want to give you a foul.
Yeah.
That's almost kind of what that was like, and you just didn't get the payback in that last moment. So that was frustrating for me.
Yeah, they're annoying calls, but I mean, obviously, you just Kobe Johnson, instead of doubling up on the big man on the offensive rebound that he lets up, if he just covers the shooter, I mean, that's the thing is you go back and watch the play, and for some reason, all four Billikens on the block crash the lane, and somebody's got a box out shooter. I mean, that's an obvious mistake on the Billikens' part. And again, some people are going to want to tack that up to coaching because it's such a little thing. Some people are going to, say players make mistakes in those moments. And why would it? And even if you're not being told it by the player, by the coaches, there's got to be some communication at a college level of one of us two guys is getting shooter, right? And so you look at that. You look at the fact that you're not hitting a shot in the first half for the most part. Some questionable shot selection that we've seen the entire season because that's what Swope's going to do. Even Josh Schertz is like, I wish he would lower his degree of difficulty. My biggest issue right now with Swope is what I tweeted out about, which is him dribbling into the paint and just burning possessions because there's nothing to do there and three guys are in on him. Even if there's cutters behind him, it's hard for him to get the ball around or over players. Like if, say, you triple team like Robbie in that kind of situation. So, and we saw at the very end of the game, when they could have maybe taken a lead, and we're not even talking about all this late game, last second stuff. He unfortunately gets in a lot of trouble, and no one's moving, which is not his fault. But I think there was some not so great shot selection at times.
Yeah, so
there's other non-referee things that we should focus on because they're not new. It's not the first time we've seen them.
Yeah, there was. I mean, that was our last full possession, right? The one where Swope gets into the lane, doesn't give it to Avila, and you're right. I mean, people should have been cutting on that. Like people, no one was moving off the ball there. He got into trouble, but he didn't really have good options. That's frustrating. But I think it just comes on the heels of a game where. I think degree of difficulty is a really diplomatic way of saying he took a lot of bad shots this game. And so people had already kind of been on him from what you're seeing on any, Twitter, Discord, anywhere SLU fans are congregating online. People had already been on his case about shot selection. I know I was frustrated with it. And that last one, even though, he's got to have cutters, he's got to have options there. I think it was just a long night of high degree of difficulty. On his part.
And I don't necessarily think that it's the degree of difficulty as much as it seems like he's coming down the floor. He's already got it in his mind that he's going to shoot it. Everybody and their mom knows he's going to shoot it. We can talk about it during Wofford. It was one of the final trips down the court in that game where you're just like, Swope, give it up. Like everybody and their mom knows you're going to shoot this. And I think it's that one track mind. He's got to, if he misses a shot, he's got to be okay with going a couple more possessions without getting a look. It's unacceptable to not pass when you have a bunch of good passers, I think, on this team.
I just think he's so fast. I don't know why he doesn't go up more. And part of it might be the fact that he understands that he's playing a ton of minutes. He's being asked to play make, be one of the leading scorer, and be one of their best defender. And Josh Schertz talked about it in the post game today. He's like, we're asking him to do just so much. So maybe he's not trying to go up and take a bunch of contact against a bunch of 6'10" guys the entire game. But when you watch it without knowing all the noise around it, he doesn't go up as often as you'd want because you think he would draw a lot more fouls because he's able to contort his body extremely well in the air. He has great body control, and usually guys who have his kind of body control, even if they're smaller, are able to get into the body of guys and get those calls. And the second thing is his step back's incredible. It's one of the best, most compact step backs. He doesn't use it in the mid-range. I'm not sure why. It seems like a really sensible thing for him to use it more in the mid-range because he gets guys going one way and then just pull back on him and they're going that way, you're going this way. I'm okay with him taking, a 17-footer because it is Swope. I like that a lot more than what ends up happening a lot of those possessions where he gets caught in the paint, which is he just goes up and tries to throw a jump pass, and I have to think his success right now in those plays is fairly low.
When we start this game, what was it, Zach? 0 for 8 from 3, and then 1 for 13 or 14.
Yeah, I mean, I
hit a second one.
I think about firing up the old Larry Hughes stop taking so many bad shots.com address.
That website was active for a surprisingly long time, by the way. It's only in the last few years that was finally let go of.
Yeah, it's frustrating when you're going that stretch without hitting a three, and you're just kind of coming down court and pull up from 30 feet.
Well, do you guys think it was the shot selection or what? Because I actually thought there were plenty of good attempts.
Oh yeah,
in that
stretch.
No,
there were a lot of open attempts. No, yeah. So I think and here's the thing about Isaiah Swope is we don't like the shot selection, but at the same time, we can't fall into the results factor of the thing, which is he hits a lot of the things we would classify as bad shots.
Yes,
and he hits them in big moments, and he hit 2 of them in the first half in a big moment that weren't the most perfect shot. Were probably, if you ranked every shot they took, were probably pretty far down in even the shot order of the first half. But those are the ones he hit, and so it's a give and a take. But obviously, there has to be a balance to it. There has to be a give and take to the give and take.
I'm curious your take on you talked about the step back, and you're a guy who has embraced wholeheartedly the Josh Schertz method of basketball. I got to ask, because I started thinking about that the other day, how often these players on other teams are taking mid-range shots and how often they go in. I mean, how much do you want to see maybe Schertz being a little more flexible with this team, given its struggles from three at times?
I don't. I mean, I think he has his system. Let it cook, and I think he's aware that he's been adamant since game 4 that they don't have the shooters, and I've had a lot of tweets about that, talking about how I think he's very not uncomfortable. He's not happy with the fact that he can't put 4 shooters on the floor that can also defend well enough to win games, because that's the issue that they had as soon as the roster got healthy. Is you realize they're not consistent enough shooters and defenders to do what he always wants to do, and so he acknowledges that they're not that level of 3-point shooting. But I think his answer and my answer would just be, you just have to work for better shots at the rim. That's the big thing. I mean, early in the season, they were doing fantastic at getting to the rim and finishing for the most part. And then they've had a couple bad games where they couldn't hit a layup. This is a stat that I didn't realize just popped out now because we're talking about it. They went 9 of 20 today on layups. 9 of
That's
20.
Not great, Bob.
And then you add in 10 of 17 from the stripe. You're not doing the other part of the equation. The equation is 3-pointers, layups, and free throws. And if you're missing 2/3 of the equation in the plan, it's not going to work. And so they were missing 2/3 of it today. And again, the 3-point shooting came later, but even 12 of 32 in the long run isn't terrible. You'll take some games especially without a Larry Hughes and without some of the shooters we expected them to have, Josiah Doetzler, a healthy Kellen Thames, who again, they're missing 15 and 7 when he was playing, and that's not nothing. And so there is, the shooting isn't to that level, but I do agree with him that it's going to break more often positively to this level. 38% on 30 plus shots. It's not terrible. The 4 for 14 jumps out really bad from Swope. But I don't think there's a change necessarily needed, because we've seen a change because the system did not coalesce the way he thought it was going to, I think.
So one of the things Zach has kind of been hammering lately, and I don't know if this is the answer for 3-point shooting, is that he's not really using his bench much at all. Of course, the streak to start the game of not hitting a 3 gets broken by Killian Brokoff, as Zach raises his arms up over there. We saw Dylan Warlick hit a 3 in limited minutes in the previous game, and I'm just sort of wondering whether we might have some shooters on the bench, or is it just, those guys aren't ready for bigger minutes yet?
Well, yeah, the Brokoff issue is that, he played 3 minutes. He did hit that three, but he also turned the ball over twice. So and that was my thing is when Robbie picks up the fourth foul with 18 minutes left, you have two decisions. You go small with Kalu and you bring in Amari as the 4, or you put in Brockhoff and you run similar sets because he's not a great, but he's a replacement level facsimile for what Robbie Avila does in the offense. He can
With
run
better
all the dribble
defense, though.
Yeah, he can run the dribble. He can run all the dribble toss stuff. He can run the high pick and rolls. He can shoot threes. He might actually be a more naturally gifted 3-point shooter than Robbie Avila, just like out of the gate. I think he is, and so he can do all the stuff that Robbie does in a lot of ways. And so those are the two options when that happens. And Church just acknowledged Killian wasn't having a good game. Amari was, so we're going to go small. And it probably worked out better defensively having, them going small. Obviously, maybe you want a big man out there so Kalu's not tapping that last-second rebound out there. But nonetheless, I think it was the smart decision. I do want to see more from the bench. Dylan Warlick is hilarious every time he plays, and I mean that as a compliment because somebody call him a Badger. I think he's just like the guy.
He's Teen Wolf.
Yes, exactly. He's
Scotty Howard.
The minute he touched the floor in the Wofford I think it was the Wofford game, he was just like he's diving for balls. He's trying to rip out jump balls. I love everything about it. If he would have hit that 3 today, it would have been absolutely huge. So, I mean, I want to see more from the bench as well, especially Amari McCaughtry. We got 22 minutes from him today. I expect that we're going to keep seeing more from him. My big surprise is that we haven't gotten like a 5-minute stretch from Max Picard since the bench kind of got trimmed down again with Larry's departure and Kellen now being out multiple games, not just being limited. So I'm kind of disappointed that we haven't seen Picard a little bit more, but I mean he is super raw and Church is kind of playing with pretty thin margins right now, so I get it.
I think one of my biggest issues with Travis Ford as a head coach, I'm setting the stage. With Travis Ford was that hook for like doing things wrong. And in this one, I wanted to see more of, again, Brockhoff we talked about, but with Dylan Warlick, I felt like he had that two-handed foul on the drive, and then Church was just like, well, we tried, and then yanked him. So that was frustrating because, again, I think he can come in and take minutes from Gibson Jimerson in a lot of ways. He guards just about the same. I think he's a little bit more of a crash test dummy at this point in his career that you can kind of use to really spell Jimerson instead of taxing him. So I just want to see more. I think this team is going to be better the more it can rest its stars and its main contributors.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the amount of just what they're putting on all these players from the get-go has been unbelievable, and it's hard to play. I know the biggest complaint this season has been they're not playing a full 40, and there's no excuse for not playing the first 20, but I kind of understand why we're looking at, as Josh Schertz put it, 4 or 5, multiple games where they've only lost by 4 or 5 points because it's kind of hard to leg it out every single time when Isaiah Swope's having to play almost 40 minutes and having to do everything, and Robbie was having to play more minutes than he should have as he was, coming back from things. And again, he still played 27 minutes today despite being out for a 9-minute stretch because of foul trouble. So they do need to get more minutes from their bench, there's no doubt, and obviously getting Kellen Thames back for anything would be huge.
It drives me nuts real quick before I'll let Peter go, but it just drives me nuts that a guy gets out there for like 3 minutes. I would be pissed. I'm like, I showed up and put my uniform on to play for 3 minutes. Like, if I'm out there, give me 5 total minutes. I don't want to be out there 3+ minutes, but like,
it's funny you said that.
Out there.
I had a quote I posted on Twitter. It was one of the long ones from Schertz, and he talked about that where he's like, you piss off the player that you took the 3 minutes from because he's like, I'm a starter, I want to get 35 minutes. Why am I playing 32? And you also piss off the guy who you gave 3 minutes for because he's like, I had to get all amped up and you played me for one stretch. And so he even acknowledged that there is that you don't like to do that, but I think for him I think it's different when you see him put these guys in early in the first half and then not again, clearly he's trying to test the water, and if he doesn't like the feel, he's going to bail. And I can understand that a little bit more than just waiting until the middle of the second when you're up by 12 to be like, yeah, get in there for 3 minutes and then yanking him. That would be even worse.
I do. By the way, ask Mark Titus about getting in there for 3 minutes after sitting down. But I think, it's. I think that you don't lose as much. I think you improve your defense, obviously, by Brockhoff over Avila, but I don't think you lose anything else with Warlick or Pekar in there. I think Pekar's actually a stout defender with long arms, at least positionally. So I just don't think you're losing anything on defense. Pete, I don't know if you think differently.
No, I agree with you, and I think overall, we have this note in here as well. Just Avila's game, getting the foul calls, getting in foul trouble relatively early on. Not really doing a whole lot in this game relative to what he can. Like, yes, they did play him with 4 fouls, and he wound up with 11, 6, and 5. Hit a big 3 late in the game. But I don't know. Zach, I think you had a few choice.
I was waiting to see if Ron Burgundy over there would read what was on the notes.
I wanted to throw that your way.
Yeah, no, I think of course I was highly critical of his wardrobe choice going after the Illinois State game, but I feel like there are times he's out there and it just he's not built for this shit. In that moment, it's frustrating to see him get physically pushed around and anywhere on the court, not even just in the low post. And when he turns it over, it feels cheap to me. Rock, I don't know what you think.
I think that's the other side of a guy who pulls off the Jokic weird things where he's stumbling through and he somehow gets the and one because he just pushes a random 20 10 15-foot floater that you're how does he hit that kind of stuff? The other side of that is sometimes he looks kind of goofy and uncoordinated. But I mean, for me, if you go back and look at it, Robbie Avila has hit half a dozen crazy threes already in this season, late in second halves to keep them in games, to take leads, to cut a 5-point lead down to a 2-point lead. He's hit some nuts threes. And he's not even out of the non-conference schedule of his very first season here. So I would disagree with that just because just based on how many big shots he's hit already, I think he's got it. But he's just that's the kind of player he is. He's gotten bullied by some huge, absolutely mammoth centers, and he's a smaller guy, compared to those guys, and he's not a freak athlete, so he just doesn't move his feet laterally very well. So you can't, hide him on even non-shooters, because if they take him away from the basket, they can probably dribble by him. And so that's just kind of what Robbie is defensively. You have to play him in a deep drop for a reason. They've kind of manipulated that at times this year. He is what he is defensively, and
I thought he played well in this game for the most part defensively. Yeah,
but at the same time, maybe we see something different in February and March when he's maybe able to work out in a different pace on an ankle that feels 100%.
Yeah, I think that's right. He's kind of. I don't quite know what to make of him yet. I told Zach, I felt like he didn't really look healthy until the Wofford game, if that makes sense. I felt like he was really playing gingerly, kind of favoring things, and I thought he looked a lot physically better in that game. But it's weird having him on your team now, and he's not this guy who does those crazy Jokic things, but you kind of know what he's capable of, and there are times where he just looks completely out of sorts. And I don't know. He's an interesting player that way, but I do agree with you that he has hit some really big shots.
Oh yeah.
This season, and today was certainly no exception there. I wish he would have had a chance for one more. Had Swope found him on that last possession, which shouldn't have been our last possession, but what was.
I wish we had the guy from Loyola on our team who threw that full court heave at the buzzer. It landed right between the backboard and the rim. Right there on the side loop, they had 0.3 seconds left. If they got a tip on that, that's it.
Yeah,
and I think to your point, crazy. His shot making, despite the numbers, his shot making hasn't been kind of what it jumped out off the screen last year. But relative to the amount you see from just the level of passing that SLU's at this year and the level that ISU was at last year, I've been fairly impressed with his passing the entire season. And he has, he had that sweet little wrap around to Kalu that I know didn't count because I think it was a foul. His when he catches the ball in the short roll and he's got shooters in the corners and you break on one of those shooters to tag him or stunt off one of those shooters, he's hitting that guy right in his pocket almost every time. I mean, I agree with you. The shot making hasn't been there, but the playmaking really has been there, and I think you have to again factor in how much has he actually practiced with the group that's on the court right now. And it's a very small amount.
That's fair.
I do. You just said his name, and you're making me think of him now. I do have really mixed feelings about what we saw from Kalu in this game today. I think, you got to like on paper, what was it, 12 and 8 out of him?
Yep.
Pretty good defensive rebounding.
3
steals as well. He did hit 2 clutch free throws. He either made both or missed both every time he went to the free throw line, all 4 times, which 50% I think is just what we're going to get out of him. I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings about his defense in this one, and I don't know what you saw out of him today, whether you would call this a positive or negative. I mean, he was by far the worst when you look at the plus minus on SLU. Most people are pretty close to the cutoff point, but he was minus 11 in this game.
I would love to see the numbers for his plus minus when he was the center on this team.
Yeah.
I would be super interested to see that, because that was I thought that was a very good run of play for us.
Right.
And so I would be interested in that, which would, I don't know what that would tell you, but it's got to tell you something.
This is interesting. This is why I like using a lot of different numbers. So you're right, he was the worst. He was minus 11, worst on the SLU team. But if you dive into the analytics tab on the game, he had the highest offensive rating while he was on the floor with a 131.2, and he had the best defensive rating on the team with an 89.2.
See, that surprises me. That doesn't feel right.
and my thing with him is that it sounds so stupid to say this, but it's the truest thing in the world. I've never seen somebody contest so many shots that go in. It's unbelievable how many times he's got a hand right in the guy's face. And maybe he's just not jumping as hard as he should because he's not trying to foul the guy. But God, he seems like he's in the guy's pocket every time. Yeah, he had the highest defensive rating. Well, Dylan Warlick had an 87.2, but that doesn't count. He had the highest defensive rating of anybody who played big minutes. Amari McCoughtry was the only other player under 100, which means better than average. Amari McCoughtry had a 98.5 defensive rating. But yeah, Kalu Anya, the only above average offensive players according to offensive rating when they were on the floor, where Isaiah was Kalu Anya with 131, Isaiah Swope with 112, and Killian Brockhoff with 111.
Amazing. So the analytics are
you nerds.
No matter how you slice this one, you can come up with a completely different narrative for how.
Yeah.
But to your point, this is why analytics cheat sometimes, because you have to remember he went 4 or 5 from the floor. That's going to boost his offensive rating. I'm with you. His offensive rating, that feels a little flaky. I do think he played good defense because, and to Zach's point, I think when he was playing the 5 for that stretch, if you go back and watch it, there's 4 or 5 times where he slides into the paint and contests the shot just extremely well and actually does get a stop. And those kind of stops, again, because of some defensive liabilities at times, that's when the Billikens have just been gotten eat up in the paint, is when no one slides. It's either that or, and I pointed this out on Twitter as well, or they get beat by a skip pass and then rotate like 7th graders, and then no one covers the most wide open man in the world. And they actually executed a couple skip pass switches today where multiple guys had to switch to make it work. So again, I agree with Josh Schertz, who said it was the most collective together game they've had the entire season, and I think definitely defensively.
Do you think that is? Do you think Josh Schertz will inform his lineups with that knowledge that group of 5 played as well as they did, and maybe you see Avila get a little more rest, I guess.
I mean, you can't really do that until Kellen Thames is healthy because you don't have enough wings to play small ball for more I mean, I guess you can if you're never. I mean, if you're never going to play your bench, then you are just going to play everyone forever. And at that point, you can just do what you did today and play Amari McCautry 22 minutes, and then play Brockhoff and Picard a total of 5 minutes, and then you don't have to do it. But you are extremely big heavy right now, and you don't have a lot of wings, and so it's a little tricky. But as soon as you get a healthy Kellen Thames, then I'm completely down for that, because if you think about a Swope, Gibson, Thames, McCautry, Anya setup, well, now you have a lot that can screw with people defensively in a way that I don't think any other Billikens lineup can. And especially against a smaller team, shoots a lot of threes, you could switch pretty much across all 5 positions with that group, and I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, agreed.
But
Anything else?
until Thames isn't back, you just the numbers are just.
Should we talk about Thames? What like? Why? Why is that? Why is this happening to us?
I mean, I think it's kind of, wasn't this a thing? I know.
Well, so it's the hip.
It's the hip now, but I'm saying, haven't we've seen this with guys who grow a ton and are super springy, and it just feels like for a couple of years their body is volatile. And I know Zion has become this really like weird buzzword around that, but like just stop Zion thinking about Zion like after like the first year at Duke in this, why I'm bringing him up. It's just like guys like that who grow so much. And that was my thing about Kellen. It was awesome that he grew more, but it's just like, man, he had those baby deer moments last year where he just when he would land after a dunk or a play, and you'd be like, that doesn't look like it was how you want it to happen if you're a doctor watching your patient land after he would land in really awkward ways, and his legs would contort in weird ways when he would land, and it's like I had weird flashbacks to Tracy McGrady, and so like I've always kind of been a little bit worried, and I don't think it's going to be something that actually like is a problem going forward. I just think the guy's having crazy cramp issues, and now he's got a hip thing. The hip thing's completely separate, but the cramp thing I think might just be just one of those things where he's just so springy. There's just so much tension in the muscles that he's got an issue with it. And I think we've seen other incredible athletes. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I just know that we've seen crazy athletes in sports have issues like this before because they grew a ton and their body's still kind of getting acclimated to itself.
I think the thing that makes us nervous, though, is that we've kind of went through it with Thatch not all that long ago, Fred Thatch, and it started out as mysterious cramping, and then it turned out to be a chronic issue, that like a condition that he had, and that's the kind of thing that makes me a little nervous, is the fact that the doctors don't seem to fully know what's going on with the cramping, and that, as opposed to just like having an explanation like yours, like, hey, you've grown this much in this amount of time. It's not all that unheard of that your muscles are reacting this way. So I do get a little nervous for that reason. I don't know a whole lot about what set the hip on, or like, what caused that, but that's what makes me nervous in that regard. I think he would have been a huge difference maker in this game tonight for sure, and definitely in Wofford too. So the sooner he gets back, the better. But I'm starting to worry that we're just not going to see him 100% this season.
Yeah, and that's completely fair. And like I said, I'm only comparing this to just other times we've sthink just crazy freaks like this, and that's what Kellen is. I mean, he's crazy springy, and they're obviously missing it again. I think it was 15 and 7, almost 2 assists, and probably the second or third best individual defender on the team, alongside McCautry and Isaiah Swope. And so when you're missing that, that's huge. And on this team, even being a replacement level 3-point shooter is a huge asset when you combine with the other things, and that's what he is.
Kobe Johnson stepped up in this game. It was certainly unexpected. Welcome, though. 3 of 5 from 3. Someone in the Discord mentioned that this is kind of, I think it was Jack Godar, mentioned that this was what Kobe Johnson kind of looked like prior to that shoulder injury early in the season.
He looked. I got to say, he was. In addition to Robbie, I think I made this comment during the Wofford game that they both looked like they were back to full health in that game. Just the way that they were moving, playing a lot more confident. So I do feel like he's finally starting to feel good. I will say though, both of those misses of the 3 for 5 came in the first half, and he had a chance at a third wide open look from the corner in the first half and opted not to take it. It wound up in Swope's hands. Swope took a off balance 3 from basically the same spot.
The Tremaine Isabel.
Exactly. I thought that was interesting, and that's what made his second half 3 for 3 from 3 all the more surprising to me.
Yeah, that was huge. He's been, up and down again. We talk about it with Robbie just a few minutes ago. Getting acclimated to a new team that you've never played with, that you haven't been able to practice with, that's so difficult. And I think Kobe Johnson's growth over the last few games is a great example of how that familiarity can kind of change over time. Because he looks a lot more comfortable. His defense is still really good at times and then really bad at times. I think he's a really kind of herky-jerky kind of player, both offensively and defensively, kind of like a Karis LeVert kind of style player. And whenever he had a bad defensive play, he overcommitted on something, and it took him out of position. But then he had a lot of great defensive plays, and that's the guy he's going to be. And then his offensive game, if he can hit those open threes, that's huge. I don't know how I feel about that mid-range push shot that he breaks out at least one time every single game without fail. Though I think he's hitting like 50% on it now, so that's fine. But yeah,
wasn't that the one he talked that Church said was okay? Wasn't that his?
It might have been. I can't remember what it was. I thought Church just like okayed Swope taking whatever he wanted. I can't remember if it was Kobe's.
I couldn't remember if it was McCautry or Kobe.
It definitely wasn't McCautry.
No.
So probably was Kobe. Just because we never really talked about McCautry's offensive game with Coach. I was still waiting on the right time to ask him like what exactly they're working on his shot, because I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah.
Wait, what about his shot? Pete, do you know what? I don't.
Oh, the ball never rotates. When Amari McCautry shoots a 3 most of the time, the ball will maybe rotate one full time. Maybe. I've never seen a college basketball player knuckleball a shot like this.
I'm gonna need film proof.
And there was and this is why I want to ask Shirts now, because against the Wofford game, I think he got 2 full rotations on one of his 3-point attempts, but he's hitting them, and so I don't want to be an ass about it, but it fascinates me because the littlest thing I picked up is looking for little shooting hitches and things like that, and he's got a good stroke, but he doesn't follow through, and so he doesn't put like any spin on the ball, and I'm just like, that's insane, but he hits them, and so I can't really say anything.
I remember that coming up when he was, I don't know if it was the scrimmage or sometime right after he had just gotten a SLU exhibition game, or very early on, people noticed that. And it seemed like they had been tweaking his shot, but it's still there. That issue's still there.
It's amazing to me. I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
All right, I got one question or 2 questions for both of you, and then I'll give my opinion. First question, we'll go around, and then okay. Did the refs cost the Billikens the game in this one, Pete?
Yeah, I think you have to say they did. There were at least three crucial points in the last couple possessions where calls did not go our way and either should have gone our way or not been overturned. And if any one of those happens, I think we probably walk away with this. So you can also say, oh, SLU could have done this or that, but the fact of the matter is that the refs had multiple occasions where this result would have flipped.
Rock?
I'll go chronologically. No, the very last thing that screwed you was not boxing out the shooter on his own free throw. So I'm going to go with no.
It. Well, yeah,
the free throw that never should have even happened. So
yes.
That's fair.
Pete,
fair.
What since the next question, it's like a flow chart. Pete, was there shady action from the officiating?
I'd like to take a look at their portfolios tomorrow morning is all I'm saying. See if there's any Lope stock in there. I don't, look, I can't prove anything like that. I think refs are always going to favor the home. I think there's just something natural in people where you kind of give the benefit of the doubt to the home team. I think there's a little bit of that happens, unless I can actually find evidence that there was something shady. I'm not a big conspiracy guy, so I can't say that.
I would say I like it investigated.
I like let's ask questions, but I just I have a really hard time figuring out an explanation for some of their choices in this game.
Yeah, it's a question. Some very questionable calls, but I mean they have a tough job. And no, I don't think anything nefarious is going on. Obviously,
I'm going full clickbait on the thumbnail today.
I'm not gonna say that at all.
I'm using your screen grab too.
They screwed up those calls. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
Yeah.
But again, your refs are always gonna screw up calls. I just want to know what they saw in the 3.8 play because I think it's just very clear that Moore swipes it out of his hands, and much like if you're going to say that it's out on Anya because he follows through and clearly his fingertips push the ball that way, and that was one of the things the announcers pointed out. If you look at that play, they're saying, well, Anya's hands are going this way and the ball goes that way, so you can't have it out on the GCU player because his momentum wasn't taken that way. Well, where are Robbie Avila's hands? They're going like this. They're going like this, and the ball goes that way. So I feel like the same argument can hold. And so, yeah, I want to know what their process was in 3.8. I want to know why that review went so much quicker than the earlier review, which seemed, again, they didn't seem like they had a good look at it. So maybe that's why it took longer. But at the same time, I feel like maybe a little bit more time on that review, making sure that you can clearly see Moore's hand, much like they were trying to do on the other play. I don't know. I don't like the call, but referees are trying to do their job, and in the end of the day, I respect that.
That's the issue, though, right? Like we want an explanation, right? You just go. Like you said, there's nothing nefarious, I don't think, going on here, but would love to hear an explanation, and we never will. There's zero accountability whatsoever in college officiating, and that really bothers me.
I mean, it's the same way. It's the same way at the NBA. You get a 2-minute report, you get a pool report, but nothing happens if the refs will just say, "Yeah, we blew that call. You shouldn't have had those free throws." Game's still a W or an L. I mean, that's why it feels so stupid to do the whole under protest thing. And I know I tweeted it out because in the heat of the moment, I was like, "This is a miscarriage of justice. How dare they?"
It was.
It was. I mean, they got it wrong multiple times.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's still an L in the column, which is unfortunate. But again, you box out, you hit a couple threes, and it's all nil. So it sucks to talk about it because again, it's right in front of us, and we can't just ignore that it happened. But we gotta move past it and work on boxing out the shooter.
I will. I do not accept that. Let's 73-72 game against Grand Canyon. Let's go ahead and talk about the Wofford game, and then we'll come back and kind of talk about what you learned from this week. We'll start with Rock, and then I'll let Peter give his as well. This was this felt more like the SIUE game. It wasn't gonna flip. It felt like it was never gonna flip, and then it did at the end. Pete, SLU entered halftime up 7 after a lackluster first half effort. Are you saying that it was, because you wrote this, are you saying that it was a lackluster effort in that first half? Because I thought this was actually the most encouraging half. Obviously, we haven't gotten to GCU yet, or we had GCU, but I thought this was a decent effort.
It was a decent effort. It was a slow start, right? And I think that's what I was referring to. Like after an initial kind of lackluster game, like there wasn't much to the start of this one. They weren't really able to gain any separation, but they entered I think they went on not a big run or anything like that, but they played well at the end of the first half, and they went into halftime up 7. It felt to me like some of the shakiness we saw early on in this game, they had kind of worked through, and that I just felt like we had the ship going in the right direction going into halftime. And I think when you say like it feels more like SIUE, that in that sense, it's just like I didn't think this one would not go our way after the first half, right? That's I think that's kind of what you mean. So yeah, and that's what I mean. It wasn't a full lackluster effort in the first half. It was, I think it was just the start that was shaky there, and then it was Wofford that immediately converted back-to-back 3-point plays to open the second half, and all of a sudden this was a 1-point game, and they had us on the ropes. And I was just like, wait, whoa, what is going on here? Like, how did this get out of our control so quickly as we opened the second half when everything was trending the right direction when we went into halftime?
Yeah, I mean, that second half is just, I can't get all the missed free throws out of my head. It was so inexplicable, and it just felt like they had no chance. They went 14 of 27, 14 of 27 in the second half from the charity stripe. They're just handing the points to you, and you cannot hit them for the life of you. That was unbelievably frustrating. And one other thing is that it went 4 of 12 from 3, 5 of 12 from the floor. So I mean, there was the offensive continuity wasn't there, and so they were still getting foul calls. But man, they were not. I mean, if they would have had the refs from the GCU game, they would have lost the Wofford game by 20 because they would have never gone to the line. Yeah. And so they were getting a ton of calls against Wofford that I don't even know if they were should have gotten all those calls, and then they couldn't hit free throws to save their life. The offensive continuity was worrisome at some points in the second half for me, and that's why the Wofford game for me was a little bit more alarming than some of the other bad games, because it stalled out for no reason, and it went from getting some pretty good looks and a lot of the sets and stuff that they were running doing what it's supposed to do, to just nothing's actually working the way it's supposed to. No one's moving. It just completely doled out from the 15-minute mark to the 5-minute mark. And that's one of the reasons they lost the game. And that's disappointing.
I wanted to circle back to the free throw shooting. Wofford put Anya at the line smartly, and he went 3 of 11. Jimerson, Avila, Swope, and McCautry all had misses from the line. Jimerson missed his only 2 free throw attempts. Swope and Jimerson played 40 minutes. Jimerson, both of those missing free throws, and Schertz talked about it in the post game. I mean, this is why I kind of said play the bench, and I talked about it again on the GCU game. I don't know if that was your take here, but what I do want to talk about is what you think about Kyler Filowich being able to kind of do whatever he wanted out there and not have to go to the line and embarrass himself any more than he did on his first free throw of the game.
Yeah, I think the disappointing part there is that you were able to hold him down so well in the first half. He goes 1 of 3, gets the call as well. Then he goes 6 of 8 with 8 rebounds in the second half. And that was a huge problem because, again, it's one thing when you're getting beat up by, the big cat from Illinois State and, some of the other big guys that they faced this year. It's completely another thing when you're losing to Filwich. And that was disappointing because, he's a big dude. He looks like a freaking lumberjack out there. But that's one you have to body up and be able to at least compete a little bit tighter in that matchup. And so that was disappointing. They weren't making it hard for him at all down low. And that's as problematic as letting guys drive to the paint has been. The Billikens' actual post defense this year has been horrendous. I mean, it's bad. And then that's partially because, again, Kalu does a good job of contesting, but he gets scored on a lot despite that in the paint. And obviously Robbie, when he goes up against really talented post players or really just forceful post players, he usually, gives up not as many as he scores, but close. As the Illinois State game with him scoring 28 and that cat scoring 27.
Yeah, he shoots sub 50% from the line. And I wonder if we could have doubled down a little bit more and had just gone for the swipe. Just go in there, say, you know what, I understand that you're probably going to foul him, but be as aggressive as possible. And if you've if we're in the double bonus, immediately swipe down on him as a guard. But he shoots 50% from the line, and Bovair actually yelled. Everybody in the arena heard him yell about his free throws, and then he yaps after he makes the second one off the backboard.
It's interesting you point that out because there are not a lot of games this season where I would ever mark one of the defensive criticism for the Bills on them not tagging on bigs enough. And in fact, I think that's actually maybe the thing they are singularly best at on defense this year.
No, they've been good at it.
Really good at tagging on bigs, and sometimes it actually hurts their ability to guard three-point shooters. And so I'm just trying to remember some of the Filwich plays and just were they not? It's crazy to me. And here's the thing, though. If you're right, and I'm blanking on those plays right now, but if you're right, then that is a huge mark on that game that they just completely missed out on throwing those extra bodies, those extra limbs at him, and trying to gunk things up. Again, off the top of my head, I want to say that would shock me if it was the issue, but if it was, that's a big problem.
4 offensive rebounds, 11 overall rebounds for Filowich. How much of the problem here is just Robbie? I mean, you say our post defense has been horrendous, but who's that on?
And again, it's not just on Kalu. Yeah, that's fair. It's on Robbie too, because again, when he goes up against bigger post players or just skilled post players, again, he'll most games outscore that guy. Phil. In fact, Filwich got 15 points and Robbie scored 16. Again, another game where he outscored the guy by 1, which, some coaches will say, hey, you outscore your matchup by 1, I'll take it.
The high mark rule.
Yeah, exactly.
We have too many guys that are high mark ruled. Swope's a high mark ruled, and he's our best defender. Jimerson's our best. Like, when you have 3 guys on the floor that are all your 3 best players are all high mark rule guys. Like it's a bit hairy.
I mean, Swope is a legitimately good defender. I think he's undersized. So I mean, he's and as Josh Schertz said after the Wofford game, when Swope had a very bad foul when he went up on a pump fake. Josh Schertz, I don't know if you guys heard the post game. Josh Schertz was like, I don't know why he's trying to block a shot. He's never blocked a shot in his career. He's never going to block a shot in his career. So I don't know why he's going up on a pump fake. He goes, if they pump fake, Isaiah, stay down. You've never blocked a shot before. So,
hey, this could be the time, coach.
He's due.
That's what he's thinking, exactly. But Schertz was joking about that after the Wofford game because Swope did get caught going up on a pump fake, which the Billikens are also terrible at. That was, my God, if you just could have glued their feet to the floor in the first half, they might have done better defensively against GCU tonight.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. One of the guys on Wofford who I was really impressed with, Corey Tripp, they really had trouble staying in front of him. Speaking of getting your feet set, Tripp seemed to kind of get what he wanted going to the rim. Didn't really have his outside game working for him, but man, that guy can really move.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing where I wish they would maybe switch a little bit more with Swope, because I think teams can take advantage of him never switching and they can attack that in certain ways. And I think that's something that Wofford was able to successfully do, is knowing that Swope was not going to switch, or that somebody wasn't going to switch onto him through screens and things like that. They would just run him through a bunch of stuff, and Isaiah being Isaiah, and Swope and Schertz liking his defenders to, it seems to me more like, if you're going to go under a screen, he still wants you to fight under the screen and then into the body instead of just cutting off laterally. And I think that at times is why you saw Tripp get space, get to the corner, and beat them so many times into the paint. So I think that was just a really good player finding a hole in your matchup and a hole in kind of your defensive system.
Let's see. Only 4 turnovers in this one. I don't think anyone is surprised by that.
That's crazy.
It's just only 4 forced turnovers. Sorry. I mean, we only gave up seven turnovers, but they
don't force turnovers, and that's another thing. People are complaining about the offense. good, the best offensive teams score in transition. And so if you're not forcing turnovers and you don't have elite shooters who can score quickly off makes, which is something that Josh Schertz wants to do, but has acknowledged a couple times this season that they just can't do right now. They need to slow things down and not try to worry about that. So they're missing.
Travis Ford alert.
Well, I think they are playing. I think they are playing better, and again, they don't force turnovers. So and when they do force turnovers, again, they didn't force them against Wofford. They actually were getting turnovers against GCU tonight, and they're just not great at scoring off turnovers and playing in transition, and that's a little bit worrisome because that's easy offense. It's supposed to be easy offense, and it doesn't feel like the Billikens get a lot of easy offense in transition, and even when they do actually force turnovers, and that's a little problematic for me.
And I don't think we do a great job of finishing through contact either. We're not a great and one team. At least I feel like that, Pete.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that reared its head a few times tonight in the Grand Canyon game as well. As Rock said, we went, I guess, 9 of 20 on layups, and a lot of those were pretty heavily physically contested. And, you just got to be better than that. You got to be better than that. I'm also a little concerned about the rebounding. Wofford out rebounded SLU by 6. They were +1 in the first half, +5 in the second. I thought they were a decent offensive rebounding team, but they also won the defensive glass, and kind of came away shaking my head. I hate getting out rebounded in both halves. I hate getting out rebounded at home. I don't know. Struggled with that.
Here's the one thing I'll say about that. It's easy to boost your team rebounding numbers when you're rebounding 15 missed free throws.
That's a good point.
That's the one thing I would say about that number.
Unless it's at the end of a game against Grand Canyon.
Yes. Yes, exactly that. Because I don't think the Billikens were getting a ton. I mean, the Billikens got 5 offensive rebounds in that game. So, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of rebounds that they're just vacuuming up on the depression building in Chaffetz Arena as they miss another free throw.
Avila had a stretch in that first half where he kind of just took over. He only ended up with 16 points on 3 of 8 shooting, 2 of 6 from 3, 8 of 10 from the line. I appreciate him showing up on time in this one. I would just like that when he shows up in 2 different halves, it be in the same game and not 2 games in a row.
Yeah, that was, man, because
it was the PJs, wasn't it?
Because of everything that happened with the PJs, when he got off that hot start, I was like, okay.
Yeah, I thought he was telling me to go fuck myself. I thought it was beautiful.
17 minutes, 12 points, 3 of 5 from the field, 2 of 4 from deep, 4 of 4 from the stripe, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 turnovers, and a block. I mean, that's a crazy nuts stat line in 17 minutes. And then in 16 minutes of the second half, 4 points, 0 for 3 from the field, 0 for 2 from deep, 4 of 6 from the line, 1 rebound, 2 assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal. So I mean that was very disappointing for him to turn in that second half. There's no doubt about that. And the worst thing is I didn't see Wofford do anything specifically to take him out of the game. It's just there wasn't a lot of good movement, and so the assists just completely evaporated from 6 to 2, and he didn't hit a couple shots, and so those numbers look worse. He got some great plays down low to get to the line 6 times in that second half, but yeah, that was a disappointing second half for Robbie.
He said, this is what happens when you only play 20 minutes. He said all these losses have been winnable games. He didn't think they had offensive issues outside of missing free throws. Just said the issue was defense, failing to get stops. So he's aware of the problems, but I guess we still need to figure out how to diagnose all those issues.
Yeah, I would disagree that there weren't offensive issues. That's the one disagreement I would have with and they were all adamant that it was defense and free throws that screwed him in the Wofford game, which is fair because I kind of buttressed up against that, and Schertz pointed out they scored 71 points on 61 possessions. He's going to take that in most games. For example, by the way, tonight they scored 72 and 65 possessions. almost the exact same amount of actual scoring plays, 32 in the Wofford game, 31 against Grand Canyon. So, when you're scoring like that, is that the bigger issue? I think it is, because I think that they're going to obviously need to score, 78, 79 points to win games more consistently, and I think that's a more feasible number. But it seems at this point that they want to focus on defense, and I think at least it's paying off, because the difference in the defense from Wofford to Grand Canyon University, and considering that was an away game and they've played horrendously away from home, and this is their most complete game and it's away from Chaffetz, that's at least promising.
I think that's the right way to go too. I think focus, like, as opposed to defense versus free throw shooting, it's, you really, like, I think defense needs to take precedent even over offense. Again, the offense, we know what we're going to get out of. We kind of know what we're going to get out of Avila as far as passing goes, and running the offense. And we're going to shoot threes. We're going to get to the hoop like that. That's all a read and react type situation. But with the defense, that can really take the pressure off that offense and take the pressure off that free throw. So I just, it's a real part of the game. It's not like free throw shooting that's kind of adjacent to the game, and frankly could go your way depending on who goes to the line.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, one of the issues, I think Stu tweeted out today about, with a guy like Kalu, it's going to become kind of a weird thing with him at the end of games.
Yeah.
Because
fuck off, baby! Let's go! Let's go!
You can't
Picard propaganda time.
Yeah, you know what? Picard's a natural shooter. Has he gone to the line yet this year? No, I gotta find out.
I think so. I think he has.
Okay, so yeah, I think that becomes a factor as you kind of look forward. I need to try to find Max Picard. Max Picard is 1 for 5 at the line.
Yes, give me him. He needs more volume. He needs more volume.
Brockhoff is 1 for 1.
Yes, kind of like the. Who was it that went one of Reggie Agbeko from the 3-point arc? 1 of 1.
I can career. Killian Brockhoff is 2 for 9 from deep. That's shocking. Okay.
Let's talk about
the fact that he hit that 3 today is wild now.
Yeah.
What did you think about that Warlick, McCautry, Brockhoff, Swope, and Jimerson? We'll call it lineup. I thought visually it was some of the best defense I've seen this team play. And I mean, again, I'm one of those people who has the unpopular opinion that more Brockhoff, like the aggregate, it works out. The math in my head, I don't know if it's real or not, but the fake math in my head says Brockhoff for Avila on the aggregate kind of weighs itself out at times. I would love to see this lineup more.
Well, so the lineup, what did you say? Say it again one more time.
Warlick, McCautry, Brockhoff, Swope, and Jimerson.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I mean, again, Brockhoff moves his feet better than Avila. Warlick is incredible and will just throw his body around like crazy. Gibson can guard in certain ways and certain people. He can take certain wings down. And then obviously McCautry and Swope are, again, 2 or 3 best defenders right now. And so, yeah, I thought it looked good, and I would like to see more of that. I just think I get why he wants to play smaller, and that's why that's his go-to, because they switch so much. Then maybe Kalu can play a little bit more of an aggressive, not so much, or I shouldn't say more aggressive hedge. It's more just a not as passive drop as Robbie plays back there. And I don't know if I haven't seen enough of them with Killian out there. I don't know how they defend pick and rolls with Killian right now. I have to assume they're dropping him pretty far. And usually that's been a problem for the Billikens defense. They are better when they have somebody who can step up a little bit more in the pick and roll. They get eaten alive when they play a deep drop. And I don't know how Brockhoff plays in a pick and roll right now. And that would kind of decide my opinion on that.
I think when Warlick was on the floor today, McCautry was out there, and was Killian also on the floor at the same time? I mean, to me, that was the stretch where I felt like they were playing the hardest, and I don't know how much of that is just seeing Warlick throw his body all over the place, but he
had a rebound and an offensive and defensive rebound, and I thought Warlick, It's
definitely a nice change of pace look in that they do undeniably play really hard when they're out there, hard defense. So I don't mind it as kind of a, switch up the look, switch up the vibe of the game, throw the other team off of what they're trying to do with these guys. So I'll definitely give them that at the very least.
I'm
so
curious.
Kobe. Oh, sorry.
No, yeah, go ahead.
I think they had. It looks like they had Amari, Killian, Kobe, Warlick, and Gibson. That was out there at one point. So it was Kobe, Warlick, Brockhoff, Gibson, and
Was Swope out there? Swope played 40 in this one, right?
I thought it was McCautry, but no. But I guess
yeah, it was McCautry was the fifth one.
Yeah. Okay.
So a little kind of like that, just a little bit different. Kobe Johnson in there, instead of one of the other guys. So that and again we saw a nice little 3-minute stretch from them where Billikens went +1, so not bad.
Right.
I'm curious your take, because after this game, I obviously I'm all for the freshmen getting run, saving the legs for the final stretch. I think our freshmen are better defensively than some of the guys out there. But Schertz mentioned that Avila and Brockhoff can't play together. What is your thought on that? And do you think that why do you think that is?
Probably because they don't think Brockhoff can guard smaller fours. I mean, the issue in college basketball now is that most teams, their 4-man's going to be 6'7", maybe. Sometimes he's going to be 6'6". Sometimes he's going to be 6'10", but that seems rarer. It's coming back a little bit now, but I mean, there's just so many fours are kind of undersized, and you can't switch 3 spot now. Instead of switching 2, 3, and 4, and not switching 1 and 5, now you can't switch 4 or 5, and you don't like switching 1, so now you can only switch 2 and 3. So the switching problem on defense is a big thing. Just Brockhoff or Avila having to guard somebody out on the perimeter, because if a team sees you put in 2 centers, they're just going to tell one of your guys to stand out on the perimeter and give you all that space now. And so there's a lot of issues that come up that way. Ironically enough, in this era of basketball, most people would bitch about having 2 big guys offensively, but both of them can shoot. So that actually isn't a problem for me. I think it would be really fun to watch them run a big pick and roll. That would actually be hilarious. And now that we talk about it, I really want to see it. But it's just you're gonna get absolutely torched defensively.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
Kobe Johnson, it's funny that we're talking about him now with the knowledge that he played another really nice game, but he had a season high 12 points. In this one, I thought he was generally more effective than he had been. Like you mentioned about the physical condition, Pete.
Yeah, he just looked confident. He looked healthy.
Yeah, 2 or 3 from 3. Again, anytime he's hitting his 3-pointers like that, that's going to be huge for the Billikens, and his defense, like we talked about with the GCU game. He's starting to dial it in. The big thing, again, because we talked about just the incredible tax on Swope right now. A big thing with Kobe Johnson, and you saw it later in the game, Kobe Johnson is a guy who can bring the ball up. And that allows, 1, Isaiah Swope not have to worry about that and focus on scoring. And 2, allows him to focus on scoring specifically in an off-ball role. And if you're a fan of the NBA or if you're a fan of Stephen Curry, yeah, he's great on the ball, but the amount of times that the Warriors can then put him off ball and run him through screens and stuff like that taxes and bends defenses and allows him to get looks that he's not going to get when he has the ball in his hands. And so I think that's important for the Billikens to get. And without a healthy Kellen Thames and without a Larry Hughes, they're running low on other guys who can not just bring up the ball, but initiate offense. And I think at this point, getting Kobe just back enough where he's comfortable to initiate stuff will be not on the surface very big thing, but a very big thing for the Billikens going forward.
On that, did either of you see the ref make Jimerson laugh like pretty heavily before he went to the line to shoot his 2 free throws? Did either of you see this?
No, I did not see that.
Yes.
I was the Wofford game. I was focusing on the young ref who was in Isaiah Swope's ear the entire first half about his jersey not being tucked in.
What a loser.
Yeah.
L7 weenie.
Yeah, just come on. Like, it was in his ear the entire first half. Like, tuck in your shirt, tuck in your shirt. Oh my God, get out of here, man. So that's and I also the fans right behind the right off the floor behind us were jawing the entire game. And I don't know what it was, but you can see as the refs are leaning in to do one of the replays, they get the ref with a line, and the ref breaks, and he's on camera leaning into the replay as he breaks, and you see him be like, "All right, yeah, you guys got that one." So I mean, that crew apparently was a stickler in some ways, but having some fun in other ways.
Shameless plug. I got, what was it, Utah State. I got the ref. I was sitting with my buddy in one of the nice seats, and I got one of them. Let's see, Pete, run us down that last kind of how that last play went.
The one with Swope. Yeah. So I mean, what a cruel ending to this game, because SLU was down 3 with 5 seconds to play, and Swope was fouled taking a 3-pointer that definitely was not going to go in.
Nor was it a foul. Was it a foul? Because it was either completely not a foul, a very generous call, or just late.
He might have taken away his landing space.
I think he did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have.
Reasonable.
I think the foul call was fine. It was just a dumb foul because, you just didn't need to do that. But anyway, he goes to the line. He makes the first 2. Wofford calls a timeout, and then he misses the third. I just, given that free throw shooting was such an Achilles heel in this game, and that's the way it ends. When you think we don't have a chance, and that's the final. Well, the final play SLU had on offense anyway. I just thought that was just kind of a cruel finish to this game.
Yeah, that sucked. That was just, I mean, in part of me was in my back of my head. I was like, God, there's no way he hits all 3 just because the way it was going that night.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel like it was going to go that way. And then you can't get a clean last second shot off. I see what Schertz was going for. I thought it was a fine last second play call, but yeah, that was a disappointing last 5 minutes in that game. That's for sure.
By the way, you mentioned Zion Williamson earlier in this podcast. At the Stan Sheriff Center, we just had a Zion Williamson situation. A Nike shoe, the sole just completely came off.
Oh.
Like completely. It's completely. The outsole separated completely.
Remember that? I remember the narrative about that being like, he's so powerful that he's busting out of his shoes. And I honestly, at that point, I was ready to believe any and every piece of Zion propaganda and hype out there. God, that guy was so much fun to watch. A little tangent, man. It is so sad to see what's happened to him. God, he was. Oh,
it makes me sick how far
so
we
much
fall
fun to
off.
watch. God,
You and everybody else. I mean, I think Nike stock dropped temporarily the next day for that.
That's true.
After that blowout.
still, that's insane. Sorry, I was looking at his.
Well, no, you're good. I'm kind of looking down the notes because we've been kind of jumping around, which is great. It keeps it light. I guess we'll talk. Anya finished with 9 points, 10 rebounds. That's a fine game. Swope had 19 minutes and played a full 40 minutes like Jimerson. I really want to see more of the bench, and I really don't want to see our players playing 40 minutes going forward.
Yeah, I mean, getting Amari 22 today was big.
Yeah, and I do wonder, Zach. I mean, like, part of the, with the Wofford game, and I know everybody was really, really down after that game, and in various states of emotional fatigue and everything. But I do wonder, like, because you kept hammering the point about the bench, and I wonder what the balance is, right? Because you want to see more of the bench. And there's no way of knowing, like, okay, he maybe he overplayed the starters in this game, in a game we lost, but there's no way of knowing beforehand we're gonna lose this game, right? Like he's doing what he thinks he needs to do in order to win. I wonder what the number of minutes for the bench would have been that would have been correct, right? Because, like, part of me is like, yeah, those guys need more run because we need them next year and the year after and the year after. But part of me is also like, if you're trying to win games right now, I don't know that getting Killian and Max and all of these guys more minutes is going to be the difference, because if they play longer minutes, you're going to see the reasons why they are freshmen who are not really in the rotation. Those two turnovers today to offset the 3-pointer, for example, like they're just, when you give them longer minutes, you're going to see more of those flaws exposed.
And I think, to Zach's point, I think it's more of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing, where if you do play them, you might lose a couple games because of those minutes. But if you don't play them, you could be looking at the final stretch, into the conference tournament with just a completely dead leg team.
Yeah.
And to that point, we're gonna get like long arc, wacky with it. At this point, your best chance to go to the NCAA tournament is by winning the A10 conference tournament. And so to do that, people can't be dead tired. And two of those people who can't be dead tired are Gibson Jimerson and Isaiah Swope, who can't keep playing 38 and 39 minutes every single game. So to that point, if you want to look at it from that angle of what is your best chance to be a tournament team this year, it's winning in a week and a half span at potentially the very end of your season. Well, the best way to do that is to, give some people some extra rest and see if those freshmen can grow over these next 3 months into being legitimate role players when you get into that tournament and you need to win every single game. Maybe that's the way to go. I wouldn't completely hate that, but I would also understand the opposite, which is I'm a coach and my win-loss record at the end of the day is going to matter a lot, and so therefore I need to win every single game, every single day. I wake up today thinking about the next game, and I can't be doing this wacky, how do I get into the tournament? How do I win the A10 conference tournament? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll spin zone that. I'll mess with that. I like that. I like where we're going here. How about we do something really weird and see, we need to sell tickets. There's attendance issues, right? So we play the starters at home, and then we get out on the road, and it's kind of like a Bronny Jr. situation where they only play on the road, and that's where they get heavy minutes. But at home, you kind of focus more on winning, So I'm just throwing it out there. If your goal is down the road to win the A10 tournament, if that's got to be I think it's a fair trade-off. I'm willing to trade that off.
I feel like that might hurt future non-conference conversations. Like, hey, can we, like, you want to do it away? We'll come to you guys. We'll play a game there. Oh, you're going to bring your B team and play us? Thanks for the 25-point win, but we also have to sell tickets.
I tried.
Can you imagine if you hey, San Francisco, we really want to get a game going, but Robbie and Isaiah Swope aren't going to play. So thoughts?
Well, hold on. I just meant you give you're a little lengthier with your leash on the bench on the road as compared to home.
Yeah, but you heard it here, guys. Zach Miller, big fan of
minute control. Yeah,
minute control. What is it? Yeah,
what do they call it now?
Load management.
Big fan of load
which is
management.
Funny because I hate load management.
Yeah,
like I think it's the dumbest shit. I you know what? When you're okay, they're all getting paid. Never mind. That doesn't work either.
There it is.
No, what did we learn from this week, guys? I'll let Peter go first, and then we'll go with Rock. Pete, what did you learn this week? What did you take away from both games?
Yeah, I do think the minutes, the rotation is a big part of this discussion, Zach, because especially after that Wofford game where you've got all 5 starters, playing heavy minutes, over 30 minutes. 2 of them played a full 40 minutes. It wasn't quite as imbalanced when you get to the Grand Canyon game, but it's pretty close. And SLU, we find out, is in the bottom 10 in the country in bench minutes. And I think, Rock makes a really good point about if you're going to get to the tournament, it's because you win the A10 tournament. And that's going to be hard to do if you're using your starters that heavily, especially on a team that has already had so many injuries. 2 of those 5 starters who are playing heavy minutes are guys who have been hurt and not just like a stub toe. I mean, like guys who have been kind of hurt for an extended period of time and played through that.
We call that injured in the biz.
So I think you have I think there are real questions about how this rotation is managed going forward. I think there is also a question of, can you play a 40-minute game now? It just seems like, even in a game like today, in the Grand Canyon game, where they were doing a lot of things pretty well in that first half, but missing that many shots was haunting them. And I think you can quibble with some other things throughout that game, but I thought it was a pretty complete effort overall, and just in terms of the effort. So, can you put all of these things together in the course of one game? Is still something we really have not seen yet. So those are kind of the two things I'm thinking about. I also, if I'm looking at a couple individual players, it was a bad week for Gibson Jimerson. If we're looking at the week, he was just really quiet in the Grand Canyon game and not good in the Wofford game.
Thought he was going to heat up there for a second.
Yeah.
Thought so, but like, though, it's just like it's been a kind of a short spurt in these games, and he's just not nearly getting the attempts that you want him to get.
I do have a question on that, because it feels like we often kind of base the Billikens' performance individually on like every game. Like, what have you done for me in this game? But the reality is you can't score. You're going to have games like here and there. So how do you separate the bad game from like, we need to do more?
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's a fair question. And in his case, he's getting a lot of the toughest defensive assignments every night. That hasn't changed from the Ford era.
Which I thought it would. I think that's my biggest disappointment with this team, is how I kind of assumed that Gibson would get those second and maybe even third offensive assignments.
Earlier this season, it seemed like that was going to be the case more. I think now he's having a little bit more trouble finding his shots. So I don't want to ramble or anything like that. I think what I take away from this week is there are just still a lot of open questions. And I for one, I still think the narrative of this season is it just feels like an incomplete season because of the amount and severity of injuries that we've had. And just how that's.
I would like to have a conversation about the sports medicine.
That's for you to have, but we just can't get out from under that. So if we can get Kellen back anytime soon, I think that's going to be, a big factor for me as well.
Rock.
The defense has a lot of big problems, but there's still hope, and I think that's a very big point. To have after the Wofford game and now after the Grand Canyon game. Because after the Wofford game, there was a little bit of like, this defense is hopeless kind of going around. And I think that was very fair. And so to see the Grand Canyon game, it was huge for the defense to play as connected as they did. Again, it wasn't fantastic. Josh Schertz talked about being happy with getting 71 points on 61 possessions. Well, Grand Canyon actually 73 points on 69 possessions actually isn't as good. So a little bit better actually, but still the defense not great against Grand Canyon. But there's room for improvement. And again, both of those games without Kellen Thames. So I think to see that improvement without one of your better individual defenders was also a very big positive. But for me, the issue with Gibson is definitely a little bit more worrisome. Second game in a row where he just doesn't have an impact. This is the third game this season where he's had less than 10. The other games being Wichita State, the loss against Wofford, and now this loss too. So he's had some of his smallest games in their losses. In fact, if you sort his points by wins and losses in his game log, top half of his scorings are in W's, bottom half of his scores are in losses. If he scores 16 or below, they are 1-5 this season when he scores 16 points or below. So that's not ideal. We want to see Gibson turn things around and start scoring more. On the other hand, the numbers with Avila and Swope will continue to get better. That part doesn't worry me. So again, not the best week in the world for the Billikens, but getting a little bit more confidence about the defense is a pretty big step forward when you look at the roster.
Yeah, interesting about Jimerson, again, I'll come back to the bench, is that I just think that your defense improves with Bakar there. as far as Jimerson. I think if Jimerson is running this bad, I think you have to decrease his minutes, or he has to get better immediately. Or you have to find him more opportunities or better opportunities. But this week for me, I said this in the Discord, I feel energized about this team again. That Wofford get like that defense today was like you said, the best, the most connected defense this team has played this season, which automatically means that it was the best defense this team has played in the last 2 years. So that alone was such a welcome sight for me that I can forget the travesty that was, no pun intended, the end of the game with the officiating. And it's something to absolutely build on. It's not something to be happy about. Like, it's not a moral victory, but again, it is exciting and energizing. And I think this team has an opportunity to get better. I just want to, see more players get involved, and I think that will only serve to better this team when its bench can contribute big minutes.
I do want to. I'm going to throw some water on it because I'm just talking about all the stats and stuff. I pulled up the
God damn it! Don't make me feel sad.
I pulled up the KenPom page, and right now KenPom has the Billikens winning 4 conference games.
I mean, look. Here's what I said.
I'll take the over.
Yes,
I will too. I will too. But here's it's just it's crazy how slim these margins are, and just how bad some of these L's that they have them taking are. I think it will be better than that. Is my point,
yes.
And that's kind of my overarching point was just like there's improvement, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people were kind of cracking on the Wofford game was like, why aren't we seeing improvement?
Yeah.
And I know it's only one game, but I will maintain that you've seen improvement and progression in a lot of facets of the Billikens game this season.
And I think this team has, like, there's something there. There's a thing they can do. Like, I think this team is very, like, they're one thing away from figuring it out and being very, very good on offense and good enough on defense. And it doesn't feel like it's technical or strategic, and it doesn't necessarily, like, and it's not gelling as a team. There's something there with, like, it just doesn't feel like it. I don't know, but like, it felt like it in this game. We had it. We missed out on Robbie and Jimerson being just not good. That's what it felt like to me. So I think this is a great place to continue for the Billikens.
I think the real question, Zach, and I'll throw it back to you for this, is do you think SLU can beat William Woods this week?
Who's William Woods?
Nobody you?
Yeah, nobody you. Nobody you.
Hey, they are 12-2. They're 12-2.
Listening to what's his ass talk about that was kind of like it was Gottlieb. To me it sounded like the Rick Majerus Microsoft Sam or whatever it is about bitching about going to Olean.
Oh yeah.
You've seen this, right, Rock?
Yes,
yeah. Okay. But yeah, that I don't know. Rock, William Woods, are they going to put up a fight? What do you know?
No, I just I'm bummed. I'm going out of town, so I'm going to miss the Fordham game. But I don't really care that I missed the William Woods game because
Fordham's on the road.
Yeah, I know, but I throw non D1 games out of the window. They don't matter.
By the way, we'll run while we got you. We'll just run through the preview that Pete has. William Woods extends record winning streak to 8, beating Friends.
Yeah.
that was the headline.
Yeah. So that was after that last game.
Domestic violence is what they're into.
Friends University in Wichita. They're hot, Zach. They're 12-2. They're an NAIA team in the American Midwest. Their only losses are to Dordt University.
God, how do you live with that, Rock? How do you live with Dordt?
I'm just looking up Friends University right now. This is fantastic.
Friends University, yeah, and but they lost to Dort and number 11 Central Baptist College. They actually had huge wins over Harris Stowe and then Danny Brown's UHSP Tactics.
You're not a big CBC fan, are you there, Pete?
CBC.
Central Baptist College. Who the hell do you think I was talking about?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't. I thought it was the other CBC. They play their home game, Zach, in a very small. Just let me talk. In a very small home gym, so the walls are like barely off the floor on three sides. So they actually do manage to kind of pack the house on the one side the bleachers are on, where fans can sit. Their head coach, I thought this was kind of interesting. Jordan Ashton, he's only 30 years old. He went to 4 schools in 4 years. He started out at Northwest Missouri State, but left there after a season, Ben McCullum, and went to a community college, Kirkwood Community College, then Iowa State, and then Northern Iowa. So he kind of bounced around Iowa. He was 12-16 in his first season at Woods last year, and he kind of has them rolling this season. He's already, hit that number of wins. They have a surprisingly diverse geographic background on their roster. They have some guys from Columbia, who went to Father Tolton, Hickman, Battle. And they do actually have a player named Ali Booker who went to the actual CBC in St. Louis. But otherwise, they draw Christian from Baptist. All over the country, which was surprising to me. They score just under 80 points a game, and they shoot over 27 3-pointers a game. They make 33.6% of those. Excellent free throw shooting team. They're over 75%. They out-rebound their opponents by over 12 a game. They haven't played another higher division team yet this season, so I don't have a good benchmark for SLU. Obviously, this is a game we're supposed to win by a lot, but the issue is that this team shoots so much from outside, and they go really deep in the rotation. They've got about 9 guys who all play double-digit minutes. And they haven't lost in over a month. So I think they're one of those teams that's going to be a little pesky. I wouldn't say due, but they're going to be pesky for a D1 team that's been injured, that's had a lot of adversity this season. I think this team's going to be a little more of a nuisance than we want them to be. I guess would be the nicest way of putting it.
Well, Rock, I'm listening to this and I hear Ben McCullum disciple. They're going to be well drilled, no doubt.
Yeah. I'd say they will be.
That makes me nervous when we talk division.
No, they'll put. I mean, they're gonna. Again, they're a good team.
You're not gonna nobody you it.
Yeah, they're a good team, but the Billikens are gonna play hard. They're gonna, they hit more shots at home. I'm not gonna say they're gonna coast, but I think they're gonna win. Yes. I do want to say that Friends University was changed from Garfield Central Memorial University when it was bought by a dude from St. Louis. So there's a little fact for you about Friends University.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
There you go.
GCMCU or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Totally. All right. Well, Rock. Again, I love it. I love having you on, man. It's great talking ball. Great listening to you talk. And thank you for bringing some ball knowing to the non-ball knowing podcast. And thanks for hopping in the muck on Twitter today. Really,
I had to have some fun.
I was living vicariously through you because I was under orders to not engage.
I was having some fun. It's just, I'm not a fan of GCU at all. It's just the whole for-profit thing and all I'm not a fan of what they do. Or what they stand for in a lot of ways, and so I was going a little hard on that. But that's the fun of sports and stuff like that. You get a little amped while you're in the moment, and then you peel back and go, I probably shouldn't have said that.
You know what? I'm gonna say something right now. Watching that Grand Canyon broadcast and seeing kind of the in arena stuff. And I want to get your guys' take on the broadcast, but the in arena stuff felt like it was a wedding watching a basketball game, like a wedding reception watching a basketball game.
I mean,
it was like conga lines. And
yeah, man, listen, if you got the money, spend it on fan experience. That's
I would like. You've listened to this show. You've listened to the show. I like it. I love it. But I don't want SLU to try to do it how they are doing it.
That's fair.
And that is concerning.
The thing you got to understand about Grand Canyon being a for-profit, Zach, with their athletics, right? Like they only went D1 10 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
Dan
or
Marley.
that may have been the end of their probationary. No, I actually. Anyway,
It don't
call it a decade. They only went for profit 20 years ago, right when they were about to close because they were having such financial problems. So they've transformed dramatically really fast, and athletics, they claim they lose a lot of money off it. And you kind of have, for in a for-profit university with that's publicly traded with shareholders, you have to look at athletics as both kind of a loss leader and like kind of how a startup operates, right? Like how investors don't expect a startup to generate a positive net income for so many years, as it's building a consumer base and all of those kind of things. I think they look at athletics as kind of the front porch, and they are trying to.
It's a straight marketing tool
to boost all of the it's marketing, it's recruitment, it's all of those.
Which is what
things.
SLU needs to view athletics as.
So
I mean, in that way, I think, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, like I think there are maybe lessons that other schools can take. Like, what are the promotional things that they've done? But you do have to kind of there's got to be healthy skepticism to anything that they're doing, right? Because they are for profit. And how many like say they have a few bad quarters, how long is it before investors go, why are we still burning money on athletics? You know, let's keep investing in the online school. That's the most profitable part.
I like when people just respect who they are, so that's why I think it's weird that they keep going back and forth with. I don't know if at this point if it's the FTC or the Department of Education, who exactly they're going back and forth with. They're trying to go nonprofit again, and they successfully won a lawsuit that now the Department of Education has to relook at their nonprofit status. But if you're being traded if you're being publicly traded, you're not a nonprofit organization. So I don't understand. So like, if that happens, are they gonna? Does everyone's stock immediately just have to? Does everyone's stock get bought out because they have to close it down as a for-profit organization?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
I just because obviously the game comes up. I dive back into the last time I dove back into the GCU stuff, which was I think in March when the tournament rolled around, and it's like, oh, something just came down in November where it's now the Department of Education has to look at it again. But it's like, okay, but why are you still publicly traded entity? It's the weirdest thing to me. Pick a lane is my thing, I guess. And if you're going to be for profit, I don't know, pull back on the religious stuff. I don't know, that's just me.
Especially when they, their stock just really spiked after the election. They thought, well, this administration is going to be a lot more friendly to our for-profit, status. So why change that now, right? Like they're CEO, and it's not a president like Pestello. It's a CEO. He dumped a week after the election 7,700 shares for $1.3 million, over $1.3 million. He just cashed out. I don't think that's all the stock he has, but I wouldn't feel good as a student or as a shareholder for that matter to see a university president all of a sudden cash out on, some good new external news for the university.
What's the bigger scam, Grand Canyon University or the Hawk to a meme coin?
I think the meme coins are always the biggest scam.
Okay, just curious.
If you're buying meme coins, like you just set your money on fire. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've gone straight to the Hawk to. That's my fault. Rock, thanks for joining us to talk hoops, and we'll get this again next month.
Absolutely, sounds good to me.
All right, see ya.
See you, Rock.
You guys later.
Thanks again to Matt Rocchio for joining the show. Can't wait to have him on again. Pete, let's kick it around the A10. Give me the results from this week.
Starting on Tuesday the 17th, number 5 Duke beat George Mason 68-47. No surprises there. Number 22 Dayton beat UNLV by 1 at home, 66-65. St. Bonaventure 65, Siena 48. The Bonnies moved to 11-1 with that win. On Wednesday the 18th, Loyola 72, Canisius 60. St. Joe's 84, American 57. George Washington 82, Lafayette 62. We got another one of these, Zach. UMass 77, Northeastern 72. LaSalle 77, Fairleigh Dickinson 72. Never thought we'd see that twice in a season. William and Mary 93, Richmond 87.
It's tough when you got to play two people.
It's just not fair.
You got to play two different teams.
Temple 62, Davidson 61. I know that one stung. And then New Mexico 78, VCU 71. I think the marquee game for the conference may have been on Friday the 19th, though, Zach.
Yeah, number 19, Cincinnati hosting number 22, Dayton. All is right in Ohio.
It was on a neutral floor.
Oh, sorry, neutral floor.
It was in Cincinnati. It was in Cincinnati.
It was in Nasty Natty.
But it was at the downtown arena. It wasn't at UC's arena.
Yeah. Cincinnati 66, Dayton 59 on a neutral floor. Saturday the 20th, St. Joe's 82, Virginia Tech 62. Boy, are things bad in Virginia right now.
Mm-hmm. William and Mary might be the best.
Oh, yeah. Shit. St. Joe's 82, Virginia. I said that already. Bonaventure 71, Niagara 52. LaSalle 108, Little Sisters of the Poor 48. That's Immaculata, not that it matters. Fordham hangs on against Albany 87-83. Duquesne beats UC Irvine 70-54. Shout out Bluff Blog for calling that.
Yeah, good win.
Arizona State takes down UMass 78-62. Davidson 76, Bethune-Cookman 63. I'm sorry, Davidson allowed a team named Bethune-Cookman to stay in this way too long.
Are
they getting better?
Correctly, Bethune-Cookman SLU only beat by 10 a few years ago.
Yeah, it's Travis.
It was close
Ford.
for a long time. Yeah, okay, just saying.
Fair enough. Richmond 78, VMI 71, Rhode Island 85, Temple 79. By the way, smart move by the people in Virginia to have Richmond and VMI play each other. That way, at least one team in Virginia has to win. Really smart stuff. Again, Rhode Island 85, Temple 79. Sunday, the 21st, George Washington 102, UVA Wise. 62. George Mason 85, Penn 53, VCU 90, William and Mary 70. And then Oakland has another Jack Golke type. And he shot the lights out against Loyola 72-71. I got to tell you, the Loyola faithful were on the spaces spitting hot takes tonight.
Yeah, as much as you like Oakland and their head coach and everything, who's been there forever, Greg Camp, they're only a 3-win team heading into this game, and I think Loyola was feeling pretty good about their chances here. So to lose by 1, I think it was on a buzzer beater too, right?
Yes, it was another buzzer beater off offensive rebound, I think.
Yeah, so that's pretty painful. Maybe not as painful as our loss.
No, ours wasn't a loss.
It wasn't bad call after bad call after bad call, but yeah, that's a tough one for Loyola fans to swallow. So I guess I understand why they're pretty upset.
Let's talk some 2 men in a garden.
Yeah, before we do that, Zach, I want to close the loop on one recruit, Jordan Lowry, a guard from Texas who moved out of St. Louis in middle school, committed to UT Arlington on Tuesday. He's a guy we offered originally when Ford was coach. I don't think the new staff refreshed it, although they may have still kind of had a line open with him. I don't know. He was a top 150 player for a while. Might be one of those guys who transfers up, but maybe also he was just an early bloomer. So didn't want to leave any stones unturned there, but you're right. Let's turn it to 2 men in a garden, Zach, and I'm excited to talk about them this week because I just put it in order a few days ago. It arrived yesterday, and one of the things that was on their website, quietly added to their website recently, I didn't know about it until I put in my order, pickle spears. Before they only had the sliced pickles. This one, it's a much bigger jar, I got to say. It's $1 more than the pickle slices, but you get a lot more bang for your buck by the ounce. And this thing is packed, absolutely packed full of pickle spears. I haven't opened it yet. Like I said, I just got it yesterday. Still working on my last batch that I bagged up myself in one of their pickling pouches. 24-ounce jar, though, packed tight, all, natural ingredients and everything. And I'm really, really excited for these. They look through the glass. They look great. Can't wait to try them. A week from now, when I'm talking to you about this, it will be reviewing these pickles. which I didn't know existed until I bought them. So very excited to get into these. And if you want to get into them too, either before or after, I give you my thoughts on these. Head on over to twomeningarden.com. They're over there. Nationwide shipping is still $9.99. You can't beat it. Once again, twomeningarden.com and get on these right away. And you got to unmute yourself, Zach, before you start talking about pickles too.
Dang it! I don't eat pickles. But if I did, I'd eat two men in a garden. I'll tell you that much. The Billiken women had a strong week on the hardwood. They started off with a 69-59 win against Valpo Wednesday the 18th. And I say strong because the finish in this one was really strong. And my favorite Billiken, Brooklyn Gray, scored all of her 14 points in the second half, leading the way in that strong finish.
Yeah, she was great. It took her a while to wake up, but once she did, Zach, I mean, the body language, the energy, the
swag,
the actual language, like she was really talkative out there. I mean, like she woke up and she really started feeling it. It was close for 3 quarters. Valpo had a small lead, I would say, for most of that. And then they got up by as much as 11 halfway through the third. But SLU went on a tear after that, ended up outscoring Valpo 26-13 in the fourth quarter. So it was really like the last 15 game minutes here that really, really went their way, sparked by Brooklyn Gray. But I don't want to overlook what Tiara Simon did here. Her second straight double-double with 12 and 14. And she had some really big-time rebounds in the second half.
Yeah, she did. Nook Shavers right there with her in this game with 10 rebounds. Mia Bergstrom had 14, only 4 of 12, which is kind of wild to say. Yeah. But she's been outstanding, Pete. Peyton Kennedy, of course, led SLU with 15 points. However, we have some bad news for the people. Not injury related.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did not jinx it, Zach. I'm happy to say I didn't jinx it.
No, Colin Surrey jinxed it.
Colin did. She missed her first free throw of the season. First time she missed a free throw all season long was in this game. Just devastating. I can't believe they even let her play in the next game after that missed free throw. Just like
I think her second missed free throw of the season was her 50th free throw of the season, which I thought was oddly like nice and clean.
It was. Yeah, pretty solid percentage that she is managing to uphold.
She's also the NCAA leader in free throw shooting.
She is. Yeah, she very much is. Kennedy Calhoun, all over the place in this game, finished with 8 points, 9 assists, 3 steals. She did have 6 turnovers. It was just kind of she creates havoc out there. She really does. But Zach, the rebounding was really the difference here as the Billikens beat the Beacons 48-28 on the glass. I don't think I've seen a rebounding margin that wide for them in a long time.
No, they really missed out an opportunity to call them the Beeman Beacons.
Beeman Beacons.
Yeah.
I like that. That's pretty. Yeah, I like that.
The Billikens.
Wake Forest may not love.
Yeah, no, I think a nice C&D's coming away.
Yeah.
SLU did a really nice job on Leah Ernest, who I could not figure out if she was actually good at basketball. She had the Rafa headband. She was just kind of one of those annoying players on, she was a little bit taller for a guard.
Right.
Kind of reminded me a lot of those Shimmy Gray Miller guards.
Oh, okay.
Your Tyler McElwraiths, your Rachel Dieners. That's really what she with more skill like Teresa. But
yeah, and she was their leading scorer coming into this. So
yeah. They held her to 11 on 4-17 shooting. They did, however, give up a big night to their number 2, Nevaeh Jackson. We talked about her last week. She finished with 26. She was kind of one of those. She was another. Both of their guards just frustrated. Like they were just annoying.
Yeah, but like we said when we previewed this team, they really don't have a lot beyond those top two. So if you
Yeah.
keep one of them from going off, you're probably in pretty good shape, and that's what they did here, right? I
Yeah.
mean, what you held one of them to maybe her worst game of the year. So if one scores 26, you almost kind of concede like we're not going to let both of you beat us. So overall, just a strong finish by the Billikens. I think if you just watch the last 15 game minutes, you would never understand how this wasn't a blowout from the start. SLU had so much confidence, energy down the stretch. Valpo had no answers whatsoever. They just looked overmatched. It's crazy that this game was led by Valpo for the most part until then. Really hard to understand if you just watch the end of it.
They followed that up, Pete, with an 86-69 win against Bellarmine, a much improved Bellarmine, as you noted last week on Saturday the 21st.
Much improved. Bellarmine probably looked like a much easier test when SLU scheduled them. They went 10-19 last season, but they were already 9-3 heading into this game. And it was a close first half. You know, SLU took a 2-point lead into halftime, but Bellarmine had the lead, you know, at several points before that. But then the Billikens just kind of slowly grew the margin over the course of the second half. It took a lot of defensive pressure. They did run a press for some of it, and some really good free throw shooting. Although, Zach, that comment does not apply to Peyton Kennedy, who, as you said, missed a free throw for the second straight game and is now shooting an embarrassing.
Get her out of here. Get her out of here. I'm done with Peyton
57
Kennedy.
of 59 for the season.
Done with Peyton Kennedy. Get her off the team.
2 missed free throws in a season?
Get her off the team.
What are you doing?
I mean, you're on pace to miss 4 on the season. What are you doing? Get in the gym. Get up shots.
Yeah. It's
I
all
mean,
about reps.
Tillett.
It's all about
Tillett,
effort.
what do you do? Why are you allowing this to happen, Tillett?
Yeah.
By the way, this not a bit. Speaking of Tillett, I don't know why Bell Tillett is playing at the end of halves.
Is that when she's coming in? Is it really just kind of at the end of a half?
I mean, in that half, I don't like her playing.
She's definitely playing more this season than she has.
Oh my God, by far, yes.
Yeah.
She's coming in actual time.
Right. She didn't have good minutes in this game. Yeah. Look, I don't know. I don't know. It's a fair question. She certainly didn't justify her minutes this time. Luckily, Peyton Kennedy finished with 22 points in this game, 3 of 6 from 3 to go with that 9 of 10 performance from the free throw line. But unfortunately, Zach, she was the only Billiken to hit from outside in this game. The rest of the team went a combined 0 of 12 from beyond the arc. But luckily, they were great at the basket with 44 points in the paint to go with 28 points on the fast break. I think Tierra Simon, though, Zach, was the real standout of this one.
Yeah, she again ruled the paint, 16 and 17 with a double-double. By the way, not often. It feels like you don't see as high a percentage on interior shots in the women's game. So anytime you can really get up near 50% or more, I mean, that's solid, especially with smaller teams. Again, 7th straight game with 10 or more rebounds. Also a career high in rebounds. The Billikens out-rebounded them 47-34 overall. 3 other Billikens scored in double figures in this one, Pete.
Yeah, they did. They spread it out a little bit. Ken Calhoun had 13 points to go with 4 rebounds and 5 assists. Shun Anumeli, I got to go with
I know.
Pronunciation. I guess we're doing it wrong. Sorry, Shun. She had 16 and 6. Pretty good game overall. Brooklyn Gray had 10 and 4. I didn't love the 19 turnovers, but SLU had 20 steals and forced 22 giveaways overall, beating Bellarmine 31-21 in points off turnovers.
That press that they flashed in this game,
yeah,
it really did well against Bellarmine, and I thought SLU really turned up a team that was not ready for it.
Yeah, that's for sure. They look completely unprepared for for a press, no question. It was reassuring to see SLU keep building the margin despite not shooting well. Mia Bergstrom had her first really off game in quite a while. No one else was hitting from outside except Peyton Kennedy, but they were rebounding, drawing fouls, hitting free throws. They moved the ball around well. I thought probably better than I had seen them moving in quite a while. Just doing the things that help make up for a tough shooting day. Too many times we've seen them have an off shooting night and then some other element of their game is not working. And that's when things kind of get out of hand. So I don't know, Zach, kind of looking at a progress report as we head into A10 play. You and I said before the season, looking at this non-conference schedule, we'd be happy with a winning record. Now they're 6-7. So they're one game away from that. They've got no bad losses. They kind of beat the teams they were supposed to beat. But margin of defeat, I think, was the thing that you would be concerned about sometimes. The lowest rated team that SLU lost to is Norfolk State, which is 10-3 and has a net ranking of 110. Everyone else they lost to is in the top 100, and SLU is well behind that. So I think they kind of met expectations, met their goals. The highest ranked team they beat was Illinois State, which is like a 150-ish net ranked team. So there's nothing that's like, wow, they got a huge win here or there. And there's nothing that's like an embarrassing loss. I think they just kind of met it in the middle. And I would have loved to snag an upset and have a winning record. But I think they're just kind of well positioned heading into this conference play.
Yes, and it starts on Sunday, the 29th. I hear Rhode Island is fabulous this time of year. You can't beat it. They're once again underperforming expectations. They have the coaching darling of the conference in Tammy Reese, but they're not putting it together?
No, I mean, yet another season under her that's just kind of underwhelming. Right. I mean, they're 6-8 overall. They're coming off a 40-point win over St. Francis, who's terrible. But that broke a 5-game losing streak. They only have one double-digit scorer, a 6'4" center nicknamed Honey.
You say 6'4" center?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I forgot we were talking about women's basketball. I got confused there for a second. I checked out.
I was like, yep, she's tall.
I checked out.
Honey Carr. She's
I don't know. Honey should have really done me in, but then again, you talk about Boopy Miller.
I mean, it's her nickname. Her real first name is something. She's from India. It's something that I didn't write down. But anyway, she averages 11.4 points a game, 6.2 rebounds. They're not the best offensive team. They don't shoot well from anywhere, but they're really solid defensively. They hold opponents to 54 points a game. They also out-rebound opponents by 8 per game. I guess not surprising when your top player is 6'4" and a center, but they've got 2 other players on their team who are averaging, between 6 and 9 rebounds a game. So despite their record, Rhode Island is 127th in the net right now. This would actually be SLU's best win if they can pull it off on the road. Like I said, Illinois State was 150-ish. So this would be progress if they can step up and win this game. But it's a tough place, to go up there. As you say, Rhode Island this time of year, starting on the road right after Christmas. There's just a lot of kind of external factors here. But I don't know. I like where they are after the 3 bye games at home that I thought they played really well in. So I'm hoping we can kind of see conference momentum for this team much earlier in the calendar than we have the first couple of years under Tillett.
So I went way deep on Harsimran Kaur. She has to be she's from Punjab, India. She has to be the only Indian women's college basketball player, right? Has to be.
That I don't know. I mean, she was born there, but it looks like she went to high school in San Diego, if I remember correctly.
That's still. Come on, that's still a, like, culturally speaking. I feel like basketball hasn't gotten there yet, and so it's incredibly surprising. I think.
Don't you remember Simbular?
Yeah, I do.
New
God,
Mexico State.
don't do that to me.
I mean,
don't tell me I'm wrong. All right.
He was a whole foot taller than her.
Yes, I remember.
Probably weighed about 3 of her. He was a mountain.
All right. I clearly, what are you gonna do? Men's soccer. Max Floriani went number 2 to the San Jose Earthquakes in the MLS Super Draft. Peter, I maybe it's me not paying much attention to the men's soccer team this year, but I did not see that coming necessarily.
No, it's kind of doesn't it surprise you every year because like Kip Keller went like 3rd.
Well, no, I mean that year was crazy.
Yeah, that year was crazy. For one, the draft kind of sneaks up on you because it's in December and we've just kind of thrown ourselves into basketball like right after soccer has ended, a few weeks earlier. And then all of a sudden it's the draft and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. And the way our program's been, we've had guys getting drafted all the time. So number 2 overall, I had kind of heard some rumors that he was being looked at for one of the higher spots. So that's pretty cool, but you never really believe it until you see it. He was the only pre-signed senior for the draft, which is like a Generation Adidas thing. Quote, each year a handful of top collegiate underclassmen and youth national team players are signed by MLS, with the majority of such players entering MLS through the MLS Super Draft until the end of the guaranteed term of his contract, up to 3 years. Generation Adidas players are on a club's supplemental roster. So that's, look, the MLS rules, again, always remain convoluted, but that's what we have Carter Chapley for. But Zach, this was the highest drafted player we've had in quite some time.
Oh, I thought Billiken went 2. I thought we had 2 in a row, but I guess I was wrong. McBride and McKeon, they went first in the MLS inaugural draft and then in the MLS college draft in 1996. Yeah. He was the 9th player drafted since Kevin Kalish became head coach, and 39th. Billiken drafted overall. San Jose was just as bad as their stadium last season. He should have an immediate opportunity there, Pete.
Yeah, their back line wasn't good. They conceded a ton of goals. I think they're kind of looking to overhaul the whole, backline goalkeeper area. So you would like to think that a number 2 guy is going to get a good shot, Zach. So excited for him. Happy that he's got the opportunity. It's always great to see Billikens in the pros, and hopefully we keep the pipeline alive and that starts translating into more tournament success.
Yep. Marcos Morris transferring out. He's heading to Houston Christian. And Pete, I'll let you kind of talk about the new president because obviously I have questions, but I'll let you give the kind of the down and dirty facts.
Well, the one thing I want to know, Zach, is how do we pronounce his last name? Is it just Fieser?
Fieser.
Edward J. Fieser from Oregon State has been named the new president of St. Louis University, which will be effective July 1st of 2025, which I believe is the first day of SLU's fiscal year. So he's coming from Oregon State, and his intro talked a lot about his Jesuit schooling, going to San Francisco for undergrad. He went to a Catholic high school.
Oh, God, where'd you go to high school?
Exactly. Well, Northern California, but still a Catholic school. So I gotta ask a couple questions here, Zach. Coming from one of the 2 schools that was left out of conference realignment, those major programs, does that matter? Does that scare you?
I think that the idea that he is not he's not already been a president, and they're bringing him in to rectify the budgetary situation. It appears anyway. Mm-hmm. It feels a little crazy to bring in a person to lead the whole university, but also just to do one thing. It just feels like a way to cause more issues on other parts of the university. I worry honestly more about that. I don't think he was in a position of power with Oregon State. I don't. Now, was he in meetings? Who knows? But
I'm sure he was. I mean, he was provost there, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't president.
But I mean, did he have some, I don't know. He could have been pushing for it and been overruled. So I think it's not certainly not an encouraging sign, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not something to like freak out over.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, like this, Oregon State has not been good in the sports that matter in a
Yeah.
really, really long time. I don't know if they ever have. I don't know enough about their history, but can you think of them ever being like sustaining a period of like success in either football or basketball? They certainly haven't in basketball. And I know in
No.
football, they've put some guys in the pros over the years. I think if you're a major program, you're always going to have some guys. I know Corvallis is pretty remote. It's a tough place to recruit to. I mean, it's way out there. It's far from Portland. It's really far from any major city on the West Coast. It's a hard place to. I've read multiple articles about football and basketball coaches there being like, I just can't get people out here. It's pretty remote. So I know there are some challenges there. How much a provost has to do with that, I don't know. I think he comes in probably in the midst of kind of a budget squeeze, and he might have, I think he's billed as kind of having the skill set for that, how to navigate through that. And then also, comes from a pretty major research university, and SLU, I read is either about to be named, to the top tier of whatever the, research university designations are. So there's a couple things that he's coming in for, and I'm not sure athletics is one of them. Now, what that means for the athletic department, I don't know. If he's coming in the midst of a budget crunch, it feels like, no matter what, athletics is not all of a sudden going to have the spigot open from the
Yeah.
the
I
Bird
think
Hall.
I think I hope that he will come in and see that athletics is worth keeping in the budget, and that the reason that we have not succeeded is not for lack of funds. It's for lack of vision, overspending on certain things, contracts, buyouts, decision making caused this, not the amount of money. And it's not wasted money. Well, it is wasted money in the right hands, and I don't think it's in the right hands currently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there his background, the
I could
Catholic
give
thing?
a flying. I mean, I mean, look, who cares?
Same here. Like at this point, I'm like, I know it's been a tough transition for some people to think about like, oh, these universities aren't all run by priests anymore.
Yeah.
There just aren't enough priests with that skill set. There aren't enough priests in general to all be university presidents. Right. So
I mean, half the reason they're
to-
closing Catholic schools is because of enrollment. Half the reason is because they don't have enough priests to cover them.
So we go from we go from priest to lay people to as far as I'm concerned, just get the best person in for the job. I don't care what religion they are, what their background is. I just want somebody who's going to be a good steward of the university, and I don't think you have to have that background necessarily. But I guess
I've known a lot of people with that background that were kind of terrible people. You can just look at that St. Louis Post-Dispatch article about the lawsuit against Catholic Church.
Sure. No question about that. So yeah, it's neither to me. It's not a requirement nor disqualifying on either way. So you just want the best person for the job. I think we agree on that. But I guess lastly, we'll wrap up this segment and the episode with this, Zach, is what would you want to see out of a new president? What would you hope changes? There's a Cheshire cat grin if I've ever seen one.
A new athletic director.
I thought you were going to do the Marshawn Lynch, I'm just trying not to get fined kind of thing.
I'm not. I don't like. I'll say what I say. I said what I said.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see new blood. I don't care You can have your flowers, whatever. Like you can. I mean, we have not. This is our third coach. Like I don't. Like you gotta. It hasn't been a successful 11 years here.
Yeah.
Since the last NCAA tournament that you didn't have any part in hiring, or didn't have any part of building Chaffetz. Didn't. I mean, everything that's positive on the men's basketball side, which is the only thing positive, like one NCAA tournament and a champion center, which is kind of half obsolete at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I would like to see a change up in vibes, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I'll say to have a different answer is I hope that someone could come in and take a fresh look at the athletic program and recognize the things that are really good about it and worth saving and worth building on, and then recognizing the things that need to be improved right away, right? Like, here are the facilities that are great and are huge selling points for these programs. Here are the facilities that are an embarrassment and need to be fixed up. Here are the coaches who are essential and who have built winning cultures and who are doing amazing things. Katie Shields being the best example of that, Here are the areas where maybe we've stagnated a little bit and need some new blood and that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
I just want somebody to kind of not be like some cold consultant who comes in and just slashes and burns, not to be someone who just comes in and pats everybody on the back and says, keep up the good work,
Yep.
but someone who actually can take an educated look at what we have and what we need to do and move forward with that. And so that's what I would hope for. And I know that's kind of a vague answer, but that's the mentality I would like to see.
All right, Billiken fans, thank you all again for listening. Pete, as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.